Hey, everybody, welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by Limera's Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatsky. Very glad to have you with us today. Preparing for retirement can be challenging for anyone, but often it is members of Gen X who seem to have the toughest journey. They are heading into this next chapter with fewer safety nets and more money worries than generations before them. And the end result is that many are realizing they might not be as prepared as they hoped. So today we are digging into what Gen X can do about it with two amazing guests. Kerry Hannon and Janna Herron are co-authors of Retirement Bites, a Gen X guide to securing your financial future. In their new book, they outline why this forgotten generation has it so tough, the practical moves that you can make to shore up your savings, create a dependable retirement income stream, and enter life's next chapter with confidence. And if you're tuning in and you've got questions for these amazing guests, and I'm sure that you do, drop them in the comments and I will do my best to tee them up. Before I welcome Kerry and Janna, let me just tell you a little bit more about them. Kerry Hannon has been on the show before. She is a leading authority and strategist on retirement, jobs, career transitions, entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal finance. She's a senior columnist and on-air expert at Yahoo Finance and the award-winning author of 14 books, 14, including Great Jobs for Everyone 50 plus. Janna Herron is an award-winning reporter and editor with 20 years of experience in personal finance, retirement, taxes, and real estate. Before becoming a freelance journalist, she was a senior columnist and on-air expert at Yahoo Finance as well. We are so excited to have them both with us. Kerry, Janna, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Jean. Thanks.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. So, I got to say, I don't know why I keep calling this generation them. This generation is us, right? This generation is, I'm 1964, so I lie on the bubble, but the things that you are talking about apply to me, and I think so many of the other people listening. Retirement Bites, despite the title, has been described as a hopeful, even fun roadmap for Gen Xers facing retirement. Why do you feel it was important to write this, and why for this specific generation? And Kerry, let me start with you.
Yeah, Jean, it was so amazing to me. Lots of studies started to come out saying, hey, Gen X is woefully unprepared for retirement. Everyone, I mean, and so there's study after study showing that this generation, and again, it's people, the oldest Gen Xer turned 60 this year. So it's, roughly ages, 44 to 60 in this range here. And so they were going on and on about how this generation was so unprepared, or they felt they were unprepared. And I started writing columns about this, taking a look at pulling it apart. And Janna actually was my editor at Yahoo Finance on these columns. And I said to her one day, we have a book here. We had millions of views and thousands and thousands of comments coming in on these columns. And I'm like, there is a need for information here. People were just personally emailing me saying, I need help and so forth. So that kind of, from that perspective, got my curiosity about, let's see what we can do. We checked, no one had written a retirement book for Gen X, and we took it from there.
Amazing. Janna, talk to me about the title and also about what you learned from that original series of columns, but also from the book process itself that challenged your assumptions.
Sure. So Retirement Bites really is it is riffs off of Reality Bites, which is considered like one of the quintessential Gen X films with Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Ben Stiller, and so we thought that would really, this is a very nostalgic generation. And we have a lot of, I'm a Gen Xer, by the way, and we have a lot of cultural touchstones. So I feel like that really would resonate with that generation. And the idea that retirement bites is, oh, you're not looking forward to it because you're kind of worried about it. It really gets that angst. And so that was really what we really loved about that. And I have to say, all of my friends who are Gen Xers, they just, oh, we love the title. That's a great title. So I think it works. And you know, the things that Kerry learned about these columns were not surprising to me necessarily, because this is what my friends and my sister and brother were talking about, all Gen Xers, worried about retirement, dealing with children and dealing with aging parents, and just kind of in that really gnarly part of life where you're just, yeah, you might be making a lot of money, but a lot of money is going out the door. And so it was really personal to me as well, this book. I'm not writing it for my friends. I'm writing it for my family. I'm writing it for myself because I also want to retire at some point. And so that was what was interesting about that. And then the assumptions, that's actually kind of personal too. One of the things that I found that surprised me when reporting this book was talking with was the health part. And the part that was really interesting to me was the one of the experts I talked to, who is both a physician and a financial planner. She said now is the time, when you're in your 40s and your 50s, to really get a handle on some of those health conditions that are cropping up. And everybody I know in this age group knows exactly what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, I have high blood pressure. I never did before. What happened? But the thing is, if you can get a handle on those conditions now, then that really sets you up for your healthcare spending in retirement. And so if I can get my blood pressure down and I can avoid heart failure, then I'm not going to be spending as much in retirement on my health. And so those kinds of things really resonated with me, because I'm like, okay, that's something I can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're preaching to the choir here. It's the clean your gutters school of healthcare, right? I mean, if you take care of the problems before they become really big problems, then you don't end up needing a French drain costing thousands of dollars around your house. You write about how Gen X got squeezed by disappearing pensions, late arriving 401ks, multiple financial crises during their prime earnings years, and that the result of all of this messy soup is that this generation is less certain about their financial futures. This shows up in our research. Just 41% of Gen Xers say, according to research conducted by the Alliance for Lifetime Income, that they're confident that their savings will last a lifetime. And that's compared to 62% of boomers. Kerry, when you talk to Gen Xers, which of these pressures seems to have the biggest impact? Is it the absence of the pension? Is it the fact that it took us a while to get good with our 401ks? Was it the financial crisis?
I think, Jean, the biggest factor really is the onset of the 401k. And this generation just started saving later than, say, the millennials or Gen Z, because yes, pensions, but we knew pensions weren't across the board for all, all employers. But the fact that the 401k came on board as this generation was starting into the workplace, nobody told us, how to invest, or there was no financial education around how to manage these. It was the first time do it yourself retirement savings was put on the table, and there was no playbook on what you were supposed to do. And frankly, there weren't a lot of choices in these plans to invest in, nor could you put a lot of money into them. So I think there was a real issue there of people not understanding that they needed to start saving in them. And also, I mean, someone like myself, in my first 401k, I had no idea what it was. I cashed out after 5 years. And
Hello.
I think,
yes.
so nobody told us it was a bad idea. Now, when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I know you've run the numbers, I think, on what your situation was. And you go, man, why didn't somebody tell me? So I think that's a big squeeze. I want to say one other thing about when Janna was talking about the healthcare. The fact is, when we are in those last 2 decades of our life, our healthcare costs are one of the major expenditures that people are going to face in retirement, out of pocket expenditure, not covered by Medicare. And so it's imperative that if this is one cost, if you can get your hands around it early and take control, that's going to help your spending in retirement in a very significant way.
Yeah, no doubt. Janna, I'm wondering because as Kerry made the point earlier, this generation is people of a number of ages. I think you represent the younger side of Gen X. By the time you got into a 401k, did people actually know what they were doing?
I think a little bit more, although I'm gonna say that I didn't do as well in my 20s either. um, and so I think there was a little bit more education around it, and so you probably might see a difference in fortunes between maybe those who are on the younger end versus those on the older end. But I still don't think it was quite hammered home like it is for the generations that followed. I don't know when I actually started to realize what compounding meant.
And the big thing, Gina, as you know, and Jen and I talk about in the book a bit, is automatic investing and automatic enrollment for the younger generations is now part of the fabric of it, and auto escalation and how much you put aside each year. Nobody was automatically putting anything aside for us. So and that is hugely helpful to people starting to save. And I might be slightly off on the number, but I think the average Gen Xer started saving for retirement at something like 32 or 33. So, I mean, when you have the, millennials starting much younger than that. So I think there's a real benefit to what generations are experiencing today.
And
Yeah.
Jean, I would add to one thing, since I'm like on the younger side, I came into the workforce right after the dot-com crash. And I think that probably left a sour taste in people's mouths about investing. You saw the stock market go up. It took the NASDAQ a very long time to recover from that. And so I think that was actually also something that wasn't helpful.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the financial crisis, I think what we saw with the quick collapse, but then rebound in COVID, all of those shocks to the system didn't do good things for people's confidence. Diana weighs in from the crowd. Gen Xer here. My job's first profit sharing plan was presented as you can choose the safe, no lose money option or the take your chances with the wacky stock market option. Guess which I chose? Sigh. Right? Wacky stock market. I think a lot of people thought of it that way back then. You mentioned confidence, and in the book you emphasize that understanding investment options, turning your nest egg into a retirement income stream is important. Our research, again, this is Alliance research, shows that just 35% of Gen X consumers are confident that they can do that. Kerry, why this lack of confidence? What can they do to shore up their confidence? And what do you have to say about this idea of transitioning from a savings mentality to a paycheck mentality in retirement?
Yeah, Jean, this is absolutely huge because I think people are like, they freeze at the notion of, we're just taught, okay, once we get the message that we have to be saving for retirement, it's save and save and save. And we view ourselves as savers, not as spenders. And there's a real psychological shift there, and being willing to tap into your retirement accounts in order to pay yourself. But in essence, you have to figure this out because you need to figure out how you're going to pay yourself. And there's not, again, a lot of education around this end of the equation either. How do we pull from our retirement accounts and realize that we still have money invested? We're still invested. We're still, have our money working for us, but we just have to start tapping it for the cash flow. So I think that is a huge issue of really give yourself that wingspan ahead of time to figure out how this is going to work. Can you consolidate accounts? Can you talk to a financial advisor, which I'm a big fan of doing, someone who can get up on the balcony and really look at your total wealth package, everything you have, not just your retirement account. And how do you make that happen, that you can create a paycheck for yourself that will last? And I will add, Jean, that there's a sense of, when you ask them about retirement, there's such fear because they don't know what it's going to be like. There's such a sense of uncertainty about what is it going to look like. And when people go back, Gallup did a survey that went back and looked at people pre and post retirement, and the pre-retirees were very nervous and uncertain and sure they were going to outlive their money. And the retirees, you know what? They were doing okay.
Yeah. This is
a
thread that we see showing up in Ebury's research too, the research from the Employee Benefits Research Institute. I'm always taken that when they do their retirement confidence survey, and it's pretty consistent year to year, pre-retirees are not really confident about their ability to make it through retirement, but the folks who are already in retirement are saying, I'm doing okay. Janna,
Yeah.
what do you think that's about? Like, what is it that they're doing okay with? What's the secret that the pre-retirees don't know?
Well, I mean, I like to think that when you get to a point where you are retired and you're doing something that you want, maybe it's spending time with your grandchildren or your family or traveling, that's just going to be, that sounds awesome. That sounds uplifting. But getting there is the question. Am I on the right track? Am I okay? And that's the question I think that we try to help answer, so that you may be saving, maybe you've been saving in your 401k diligently and it's all in there, but it's kind of in a black hole. That's what one of the people that we talked to said, and just didn't know what that meant. And so understanding what that, maybe the other things that you have in your life, housing equity, how that all adds up and creates a retirement nest egg. And so it's just, I think it's a little esoteric. And so it's like, okay, I did all this stuff, but now was it enough? And here we are saying, okay, this is how you figure that out.
Right. Your book is not esoteric at all. It's very, very practical. You lay out practical strategies to boost financial security, everything from paying down debt to investing smarter. Kerry, what's one quick win that a typical Gen Xer could implement this month, a change or two that they could make that would pay off long term?
Jean, I think the most important thing someone can do at this point in their life. Now, remember, many Gen Xers are at their peak earning years. So this is actually a positive. This is something, you have some runway ahead of you. You can make these tweaks. You can, if these can be fairly sizable changes, but the most important thing to do is, and people roll their eyes, but do the budget, right? You did a budget in your 20s, maybe when you're starting to work, maybe you did one in your 30s, but you probably haven't looked at how you're spending your money today. And the biggest indicator of how you're going to spend your money in retirement, or what your expenses are likely to be, often can be found right there in the nitty-gritty of today, how you spend your money today. And this is something, Janna, do you want to jump in? I know you love this topic.
Yeah, I think, when you get to a point where you're making a good amount of money and you have a lot of money coming in, and then you're just, you feel a little bit freer about, like, okay, let's go out to dinner tonight. Why not? And let's go to the movies. Let's blow out our vacation. And so all of a sudden, maybe you have this lifestyle creep that happens to all of us, happens to my family. And so going back and revisiting helps you figure out, like, exactly where your money is going, what you like to prioritize. Like, my family likes to go out to eat. And so it's good to know what you value, and then also where you're spending your money and maybe where you can pull back. And maybe that goes, into your 401k, so you can max it out, or you can even do your catch-up contributions if you're 50 or over. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you're just like, I'm making a lot of money, and then well, maybe I need to pull it back a little bit.
Let me stay with you, Janna, because some of the expenses can't be avoided when you're talking about aging parents and supporting children, and those are the expenses that are straining a retirement plan. What do you do?
So communication with those generations really helps. So, I have a son who is a sophomore in high school, so we have college coming up. We do have some stuff saved, and we are going to really have a frank conversation about what it is we can afford without jeopardizing our financial security. And so what that means is maybe he looks at a different school, maybe really scrutinizes financial aid packages. It also means that maybe we help him after he graduates if he ends up having some loans. And that's just an easier way for me to do that than to take a whole lump sum and pay for a tuition. When it comes to aging parents, this is also something that I've been dealing with. I've been talking with my parents about what is it they want? What do they envision when it comes to long-term care? What kind of money do they have to cover these kinds of things? Because sometimes what they want versus what they can do are completely different. And then if you have siblings, they need to be part of this conversation too, because let me tell you, when it gets bad, if your parents have a situation, you don't want to be having these conversations then.
No, and you want all hands on deck, right?
Yeah.
You have to spread the load out a little bit. It's very interesting that the two of you came together to write this book. You're at different stages in your life. How did that inform the process and the end product? Kerry, I'd love you both to answer this question, but we'll start with you.
Well, Jean, it has been so much fun working with Janna because, we have this generational shift between us, right? There's about a 20, I'm guessing, I actually don't even think I ever asked Janna exactly her age because I always think everyone's my age, but the fact is she's 20 years younger than me or thereabouts. And so what happens is, and this was going back to when we were working at Yahoo Finance together and she was my editor, completely energized the way I looked at my work again. Yeah, as you noted in the beginning, I've written a bunch of books. I've been in this lane about personal finance and so forth. But working with somebody who's younger and sees it from a different perspective is amazing because it shifts the way you view things. I started, I was getting kind of jaded about some of these topics. Like, of course, everybody knows this, but they don't. And the fact is, Janna was quite clear with me that no, they don't, in her family and her friends. And and then we had a blast with I will say a lot of the cultural references did work for me too, because, the Pearl Jam or whatever it might be, music we liked. And so we made a point of when we interviewed people who were Gen X's, tell us a little bit about what shows you watched or what you did. And I just think the generational energy that comes from talking about culture, music, that's what Gen X really, really goes for. And it helped us get people to open up and give us advice and also tell us their stories. And working with Janna has been just, I can't tell you how much fun it is to work with somebody who's younger than me.
And Janna, just FYI, Kerry has been saying this since long before you were in this interview together. So she's mentioned this to me. She's mentioned this to me before. What from your perspective, what did the age difference and the generational difference bring to the book?
Well, I think it really helped me as a writer because this is my first book. And as you said, this is Kerry's 15th. And in the very beginning of the process, I was like, Kerry, I don't know if I can do this. And, she helped shepherd me along and get me to where I needed to be. So that was incredibly helpful. And I'm sure you've noticed that Kerry is a very optimistic, enthusiastic person. And I tend to be a little bit more Gen X cynic, more dour maybe sometimes. And so it was really helpful because the book could have gone a little darker if it was just under me. And so Kerry provides that hope that you can do it, that maybe doesn't come as innately to me.
Very interesting. A question from the audience. Since you wrote the book, the job market for Gen X and really everyone has become brutal. The economy is weird and the stock market is on fire for now. Anything in the book, which I plan to get ASAP, that you would tweak for late stage Gen Xers? And this person says that they are asking for a friend.
Yeah, well, if I'll just jump in real quickly, this is imperative that if you're not unemployed at the moment, you have a job. But if you are looking for a job as well, you have got to do something. You have got to constantly be keeping your skills up to date. You have to be current with your industry, and be willing to shift to doing new ways of like the same kind of work in a different industry. You have to open up your mind. You got to be willing to step out of the lane that you've been in for years. And we get very comfortable, but in today's world, things are changing far too quickly. So you absolutely need to be up to date with skills. And secondly, your network. You cannot just sit back and say, oh, I know a lot of people. I'll reach out to so-and-so and so-and-so. That's not the way it works. You have to be on top of it. And networking, I always say, is one letter away from not working. And that's not, it's not a miserable situation. It's just, getting on LinkedIn and supporting somebody else, sharing something they posted, an article you read you thought was interesting. You have to be always, promoting yourself. You lift others up on a platform like LinkedIn, and it will come back to you. People will remember you. They'll look to you. And then that's a place also where you can find people working that you're connected with at companies that you might want to work at. And I always tell people to, at this stage in life, empower yourself and look for employers where you want to work. This is your time. So be really selective. Don't send a gazillion resumes out. Pare it down and then find out where you want to work and who you know that works there, because people hire people they know or people they know for the most part.
Janna, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so from a personal experience, I was laid off earlier this year. And so I was looking at that and going, uh-oh. And I did some freelancing, and I have a contract position right now, and I'm learning how to do podcasts on the back end. And so I'm expanding my skill set as a journalist. And so that's been really great. After I got laid off, Kerry was probably my second call. And Kerry's like, this is great for you. Because she's like, you need to get out and explore. And, everybody needs a Kerry in their life. And so I feel like, it is really scary. I've seen a lot of people who've lost their jobs. And, my age, a little bit older, and they're taking this time to really figure out also what their next step is going to be, and what they really want out of life and their work life. And they're trying new skills and things like that. So I totally feel that. And I totally feel about the stock market as well. It does feel very bubbly, frothy, but I don't know what's going to happen. And you just have to, maybe if you're closer to retirement, you definitely want to make sure that your exposure correlates with how much longer you have until retirement.
Yeah, if you haven't rebalanced in a while,
right?
It is long past time. Kerry, you have, as we've said, been a top personal finance author and expert for many, many decades. You're doing this job. You're at the top of your game. But if you were not doing this, if you were not a columnist for Yahoo Finance, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's such a great question. I will say I've spent my entire life selling words. And so whether I'm speaking or writing books or columns or whatever, I absolutely love words and I love to write. So for me, Jean, when I was a little girl, when I was 12, I wrote my first book, which was never published, and it's fiction and it's about horses. And it's in my desk right here in a spiral notebook, handwritten. And so maybe I would turn my attention and maybe see what I could do with that. But it would probably, I love horses, that it'd be something that might combine the two. And just for volunteer stuff, I would work with the therapeutic riding program.
Amazing. We like to end these shows by asking our guests for their best pieces of advice. So for Gen Xers listening today who maybe feel a little discouraged with where they are with their saving or are not sure what step to take next, Janna, what would you tell them?
I would say that I think it's always the scariest before you open the book or before you actually dive in. And then once you start to tackle those things step by step, figure out your net worth, your cash flow. Once you start getting that information, that scariness starts to go away. And so just know that I think you're at the worst part right now when you're thinking about it and thinking about doing something. So take that first step. And sometimes you're going to have a setback. And we have a couple people in our book that had setbacks and came back from that and regrouped. So really just taking that first step and not letting the fear keep you from going forward.
Love that. And Kerry, from you?
I just would piggyback on that. The fact is, just you have to get started. Just get started, because things are going to fluctuate. We have no crystal ball on what's ahead, but those baby steps really make you feel as if you're in control. And in fact, you are. And there is no magic number for what you need to save for retirement. Everyone's like, I need $1 million, I need 2 million. Your number is going to be unique to you, and it's going to reveal itself over time. So get started doing those basic nuts and bolts, but try to look with a positive attitude, because I think that's going to give you the energy to move forward.
100%. For people who want more about the book, for people who just want to buy the book, which they should, where should they go, Janna?
They could go to Amazon. And Kerry knows this stuff better than I do.
Well, there are any of the booksellers, independent bookstores. It's out there. It's available almost, hopefully, at your local bookstore in town. But you can also check it. We both have websites. I'm at kerryhannon.com, KerryHannon.com. Janna has a website.
Yes, it's jannaherronwrites.com, and it's Janna with 2 N's and Herron with 2 R's. Our names are very interestingly.
I know. Together, symbiotic or something like that. The book is called Retirement Bites. Check it out. Kerry, Janna, thank you so much for joining us. And no matter what generation you're a part of, LIMRA's Alliance for Lifetime Income has tips, tools, and resources to help improve your financial security. You can check out everything we have to offer at protectedincome.org. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks, Jean.
Thanks, and thanks for watching.